Hi guys, welcome to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Michelle. If you're returning or you're here from Instagram, then welcome back. Today's video is going to be about my egg freezing journey. So I actually froze my eggs about 3 years ago at this point when I was 26. I'm 29 now, and I really wish there had been someone to talk to about this when I was going through it, or like a YouTube video to watch, or just anything. I feel like there's kind of a big gap in the medical field in regards to women's fertility and just like egg freezing and all this stuff. And I think that there are a lot of women that wouldn't have to go through what they go through to have a child if there was more information about the entire process and they had access to that information when they were younger. At the time, it was something that I knew I wanted to share about, but I wasn't really like fully comfortable or ready yet. But now I feel like I'm ready. I am happy to talk about it. I'm an open book on the topic, and I really want to share my experience because I feel like it could help others, and that's just the goal at the end of the day. So I asked for your guys' questions on Instagram around the entire egg freezing thing, and I guess I'll just share kind of my story, how I ended up freezing my eggs, and then get to any questions that I haven't already answered, because I feel like a lot of them will be answered like as I talk about it. But basically, about 3.5 years ago, I was 26 years old, and I had just quit my job and was trying to make the freelance thing work. I was trying to start blogging. I had a lot of other side jobs, but they were all freelance, and I didn't have health insurance. And at this point, I was 26. I had been on birth control since I think I was 15 or 16, so 10 years. I had never really taken a break from it. And I needed to go to the gyno just for, I don't know whether it was a regular checkup or a birth control refill, whatever it was. I needed to go to the gyno, and I didn't have health insurance. My mom lives in the Valley, and she was working for an IVF fertility specialist at the time. She's always worked in the medical field. And so she said, just come into my doctor. He'll do the visit for free because you're my daughter, and like he'll just check you out. Even though he's an IVF doctor, he could just do, you know, a regular gyno checkup. So it started out like super innocent. I thought I was just going in for a regular visit. Because he is an IVF doctor, he is used to doing more than just the standard pap smear and like whatever else you get when you go to the gyno. So he actually did an ultrasound of my ovaries, and he thought he saw something strange. And like, bear with me because I'm not a doctor, so if I'm not using the exact terminology, I apologize, but this is just, you know, what I've learned and what I've picked up. Basically, at any given time, your ovaries have a few, I don't want to use the word ripe. What is the actual word? Not ripe, mature. So basically, at any given time, your ovaries have a few eggs that are mature, and when it comes time to ovulate, one of those eggs will be released from one of your ovaries. So I think that the number, whatever the number is, whether it's 10 or 20 that you should have on each side at any given time, I had like 4 or 5 on each side. And for a 26-year-old, pretty young, like healthy girl, that was abnormal. So, hi Hazel. So he was like, that's kind of strange, but it could just be that your birth control is suppressing your ovaries, and it could be nothing at all, but I'm just gonna do a blood test to confirm whether it's nothing or not. And the blood test that he did is called an AMH. You're checking your AMH levels, which is essentially your ovarian reserve. So it's checking all of your eggs in your body, not mature, just like your egg reserve. So he was like, I'm gonna run this blood test, and that will tell us whether or not it's actually something to worry about. He runs the blood test, and again, don't quote me on this, but I think the level in an average young girl that's healthy should be between 2 and 3, and my level was 1.8 or 1.6, so below average. So meaning my ovarian reserve was low for a 26-year-old, like very low. So he said, again, might not be anything to worry about. Let's get you off of birth control because it might be suppressing your ovaries. Oh my God. Okay, sorry, I have the camera propped up on Hazel's scratching post. Don't ask me why, it was just like the right height. So I have my tripod propped up on there and she just tried to scratch it. Anyway, okay, so basically he was like, again, nothing to worry about yet. Let's get you off of the birth control because that might be suppressing your ovaries or just like causing weird things to happen. Let's get you off of the birth control. Let's wait 6 months. Let's see what happens and then let's retest. So at the time, I had just started dating Gerald. I was in a new relationship. I'm 26 years old and I'm like, okay, great. You want me to go off of birth control? Like, wonderful. Whatever. So I went off of birth control and we waited the 6 months and I went back and we retested my AMH levels, the blood test, and they had dropped from 1.8 or 1.6 to like 1.3. And that was just in 6 months. And he was like, basically, if it drops below 1, that's when we really start to consider a person to be infertile. That's not to say that they are infertile, but it's just the chances become very low for you to be able to get pregnant on your own. And again, I was 26 at the time, so it's, if you're already almost infertile at the age of 26, by the time you want to have kids in your 30s, it's going to be really difficult. So that was when he recommended that I immediately freeze my eggs if I wanted to have kids. We started the process right away. Basically, it's the same as the process would be if you were going to do IVF. The first beginning stages are. So you wait until the perfect time of month. I think you start right after your period, and you inject yourself with hormones for anywhere between 7 to 14 days. And they keep checking you every few days, and then once the eggs are mature, they go in and they harvest them and they freeze those for you. So yeah, I think like 2 or 3 months went by because it wasn't, the dates weren't lining up. You have to start the shots like exactly when your period starts, and I was like gonna be out of town or like whatever it was, it wasn't working out. So 2 or 3 months go by, everything finally lines up, and the day that I get my period, we start the shots, and they teach you how to inject yourself and everything like that, but it is a little scary, I'm not gonna lie. That was the most frustrating part of all, was probably having to inject myself and feeling like I'm not a medical professional, I shouldn't be doing this, it's scary, emotions are heightened, hormones are heightened. Not to try and scare anyone, but that was the hardest part for me for sure. But you start injecting yourself every single day, and then every few days you go in for a checkup. They do an ultrasound and they just measure the progress of the eggs maturing, and then you want to catch them at the exact point when they are fully mature, and that's when they go in and harvest the eggs and freeze them. So if you remember back when he first did the ultrasound, how he said I didn't have the normal amount of mature eggs in each ovary. Basically, I went through my entire round of injections and then harvested the eggs, and they were only able to get 11 mature eggs, which they don't consider that enough to have more than one child with. That's like on the lower side. They told me the average is closer to like 20 or 25. So my ovaries are just overall, like they were just not cooperating. So he recommended that if I wanted to have more than one child, I do it again. So we went through the entire process all over again. I injected myself for the 10 days to 2 weeks. We harvested the eggs, and again, they got 11. They literally got the exact same amount both times. Like, I don't even understand how that's possible, but so yeah, basically that is the backstory. That's how I found out that I needed to freeze my eggs. That's why I did it at such a young age. So to sum it all up, if I could recommend anything to you, it would be please ask your doctor to check your AMH levels. Like, it's not an expensive blood test. I don't understand why it's not something that they just test for at a certain age. It just baffles me. But if you are at all concerned about this, no matter what your age is, please at your next visit, just ask your doctor to test your AMH levels. That's like my #1 recommendation. That's the easiest way to find out if you are going to have any future issues. The doctor told me that we could have done genetic testing or like extensive blood work I don't know exactly what it is, to find out why I was having these issues, why my egg reserve was so low, and why my ovaries weren't, or why my eggs weren't maturing in my ovaries, I guess, or more of them weren't. But he basically was like, it's going to be the same outcome either way. Like at this point, we can't fix it. We can't make your reserve larger. We can't make your ovaries operate the way they're supposed to. So it would just be a lot of expensive blood work and testing to have an answer as to why this was happening. And I didn't really feel like I needed that. You know, I'm sure it's probably something genetic. It could be something that runs in the family. I do have some cousins that have had a similar issue, but they found out way later in life. So I was like, it doesn't matter to me. Maybe someday down the line, I will do the testing to find out if it's something that I could pass on to my child, or, you know, if it's something my children should worry about. But right now, or especially like 3 years ago, it wasn't worth the extra money just to know why. I'd rather just freeze the eggs and fix the issue and know that I was kind of taking my future into my own hands. So yeah, I would say overall, I had a pretty like easy time with the egg freezing. I did a lot of research online. I read a lot of things beforehand that really scared me. So I don't know if you're at all someone who's like anxious or just like lets that sort of stuff affect you. I would probably not recommend going into the deep dark depths of the internet, because there's all sorts of scary worst case scenarios out there. And I read a lot of those and I was kind of prepared for the worst. I don't know whether that was a good thing or a bad thing, but I had a relatively easy time with both cycles. I don't feel like I had any crazy side effects or anything unusual. Like, I remember the first few days knowing that I was pumping like the maximum dosage of hormones into my body every single night. I expected to be like a raging psychopath. And the first few days I was like, I don't feel any different. Like, I'm fine, these aren't affecting me. And then probably by like about halfway through the injections, towards the end of the cycle, I was extremely emotional. I could cry at like the drop of a pin, happy tears, sad tears. At one point, I remember one of my friends told me that I looked pretty, and I literally started tearing up. Another point, I remember Gerald and I were trying to figure out where to eat on the weekend. I was really hungry. We were out of town and we were just kind of like walking around trying to decide on a restaurant, and I couldn't figure out what kind of food I wanted to eat. And we were standing in the middle of like this Chinese food restaurant, and he said something to me, like he was frustrated because I just kept saying like, I'm hungry, I want to eat, but I wouldn't tell him what I wanted to eat. And he said something to me about like, why can't you figure out what you want to eat? And I just was like, I don't know, and started crying. So I definitely was very emotional. There's a lot of hormonal changes happening, but like nothing crazy. I didn't gain any weight. I don't know, I didn't have any breakouts, nothing like that. I will say that after the actual retrieval, I was extremely bloated for a few days, like really, really painfully bloated the first time. The second time was better. They adjusted something. There's a shot you get the night before your egg retrieval called the trigger shot. And I think the doctor either changed the medication or the dose or something for that. And the second time the bloating wasn't as bad. But that's like not something you can really, it's not the worst thing in the world. And I feel like it's not something you can ask. I'm not sure if it's something you can like ask your doctor to change. But yeah, I would say really the worst part was the bloating. I wasn't really in that much pain. The procedure itself is quick. And you do get the hang of the injections, even though it sucks. And even though that was definitely the worst part of it all, you do get the hang of it. And obviously if you live with someone, or you have a roommate or a boyfriend or a family member that can help you, then that's ideal, because it is something that's kind of hard to do alone. But yeah, I'm gonna get into your questions now, because I know that there was a lot of them. Okay, so I'm just gonna read them off my phone. I screenshotted them all. Any issues with lower belly, pooch, or bloat remaining after? So nothing permanent. Like I know that people say that you can like hold on to fat and stuff like that. I don't think it affected that at all. But the bloating definitely, but that only lasted like a week max. And then I think everything was back to normal after that. How long did the entire process take? So I mean, from when I found out that I needed to freeze my eggs to when I actually froze them, like I said, that was a couple months, but that was all just dependent on me. When you, like, from when you decide you want to freeze them to when you can start the injections just depends on your next period. And so you can do it like within the month. The actual injections are anywhere from 7 to 14 days. And then on the last day you have your retrieval, and then you just recover for a couple days. So overall it's like oh, Hazel scratching again. But yeah, overall it's like a 2-week process about. Did you experience any weight gain, hormonal breakouts, or cramps? No, I don't think I gained any weight that was noticeable. I don't remember having any breakouts. Maybe a tiny bit of cramping after the retrieval, but nothing out of the ordinary. I obviously answered what made me decide to freeze my eggs, and I was 26 at the time. Does it cost a lot? What is the cost? This was by far the most common question. So I'm being completely honest here. Because my mom worked for the doctor that did my retrieval, we got a huge discount, and it was still extremely expensive. I had to call my mom and ask her beforehand what the cost is typically, and she said that anywhere from 5K to 15K all in for one cycle. So 5K being on the very low end, 15K being on the very high end. Obviously, I would say average is more like 8 to 12, but it is extremely expensive. And I was trying to ask her why, and she was basically just saying because there's so much that goes into it, like the lab having to freeze the eggs and everything afterwards. Like that's just like a very delicate process. There's a lot you can mess up, and it's a procedure where you're going under anesthesia. It's not covered by insurance because insurance companies in the US suck. So yeah, it is a very expensive process. But obviously if you have any sort of issues like I did, or if you're just like in your 30s and you're not ready to have kids yet and you do want to have the option down the line, it's worth it to invest in your future children, I feel like. But yeah, it is extremely expensive. My mom also was telling me that there's like a new female-run doctor practice that's really working on trying to get the cost lower and trying to make it more accessible to everyone. So I will get the name of that and I will put it in the description box below for you guys, because she did mention that. Let's see. If you freeze your eggs, does it lower your chances at a natural pregnancy? No, not at all. So even though they recommended that I did freeze my eggs because I wasn't planning on having kids anytime soon, it is still possible that I could get pregnant naturally. So when I am ready to have kids, we are definitely going to try the natural route first and see if I have any luck. But obviously if that doesn't work, once you're ready to use your eggs, you would go through the second half of the IVF process. So what I just described with the hormones and harvesting of your eggs and everything, that is all like step 1 of doing IVF. And then step 2 would be fertilizing the egg with your significant other's sperm and then implanting it inside of your uterus. So that is a whole nother process, and it's also extremely expensive. So hopefully I can just get pregnant naturally, but if not, then that's what I'll end up doing. But sorry, I'm getting off topic. It does not change your chances at being pregnant. There are people who donate their eggs because you can donate them for a ton of money, and people choose to do that, and they're still able to get pregnant naturally down the line. So if you think about it, they're really only taking a very small number of eggs out. Your ovarian reserve is typically like hundreds of thousands or millions of eggs even. Like it's some crazy number. So going in and taking like less than 100 is not a big deal at all and doesn't affect anything long term. There is a lot of information online about the hormone dosage having an effect long term, but like I said, I haven't noticed anything different that I'm aware of. How was the process of freezing your eggs? Like I said, overall, I feel like I'm very lucky. I don't think I had a particularly hard time. You know, I did it twice. I did it in a new relationship. I did it at a young age, and you know, like I said, the worst thing was the injections, and I was a bit hormonal. The bloating sucked, but like nothing crazy. Like I was still up and hanging out with my friends like the same weekend, and yeah. Do they freeze all of your eggs or just a portion? Again, I feel like I kind of covered this one, but it's just a portion. So I was not a typical case. They only froze 11 of mine each cycle. A more typical number would be in the 20s. So one cycle would yield you about 20, 25 eggs. And then again, obviously you can choose to do as many cycles as you want, just to make sure that you have enough for however many children you want to have, and in case of incidentals and everything. But no, there's no possible way for them to freeze all of your eggs, because they have to freeze a mature egg, and majority of the eggs that are in your body are not mature yet. How did you go about finding a reliable and trustworthy doctor for this? So like I said, my mom was working for an IVF doctor at the time, and obviously she knew him pretty well and trusted him, so we went with him. I will put his info in the description box down below as well if you guys want. My mom did mention, like, make sure you do your research. I would have multiple consultations with multiple doctors and, you know, compare the costs, because since this is a procedure that isn't covered by insurance, the cost can vary a lot. So definitely, like, do your research, read reviews. If you can get a recommendation from anyone in your life, then I always think it's better to get a recommendation rather than just going to a random doctor. But overall, you should be fine with any, you know, fertility specialist. Okay, one more question. A lot of people are saying, when is a good time to start, or like, can you be too young? Like I said, the AMH level is really key. That's something I had no idea about, and I don't understand why doctors don't just test for this like at a certain age, like when you're 25, for example. But they don't, so it's something you really have to advocate for yourself. So I would say, if you have any concerns at all, then during your next gyno visit, just voice your concerns. Ask if you can have your blood drawn and get your AMH levels tested. I will put the name of that in the description box below. But that's mainly the first step, and then they'd be able to tell you, like, no, your egg reserve numbers are super high and it's something you don't need to worry about right now, or yeah, maybe they are a little concerning and you should look into freezing your eggs. But that is really the key. I'm not sure, I need to double check, but there might even be some at-home services that allow you to send in a blood sample, like a finger prick or something, and test that. I have to double check, but there's one company I'm thinking of that does a lot of the hormone testing, and I personally did testing at home through them during quarantine when I was going off birth control and wanted to check my hormones. So I will put their name and info in the box below as well. But yeah, if you are at all concerned, then just bring it up at your next gyno visit. Ask your doctor if you can have your levels checked, and then you can go from there. If your levels are completely normal, then there's no reason to worry, and you can maybe just recheck yearly or something like that. But that is step number one, and that is, I feel like, something that people don't realize is so easy to do. I had no idea, and yeah, I just don't get why it's not standard practice. Yeah, I feel like that was a super long video, and if you've made it this far, thank you for watching. But I really hope that that was helpful, and I hope that if you were confused about it or wondering what to do, that could clarify some things for you. My DMs are always open. If you have any questions that I didn't answer, feel free to leave them in the comments below or DM me. I just really want to help and share my story and make this a more talked about thing, because I feel like a lot of women wouldn't have so many issues when they're ready to get pregnant if this was something that there was just more knowledge on and more people were talking about at a younger age. When I posted that I was doing this video, I got so many responses just being like, why are you freezing your eggs? I thought you were only in your 20s. Like, why did you do it at such a young age? Like, and I just think it's not talked about enough. Like, if you have fertility issues when you're ready to have kids in your late 30s, or in your late 20s or in your 30s, chances are that you could have done something earlier to either prevent the issues entirely or just to be prepared, and no one talks about it. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions, and I love you guys, and thanks for watching.